Welcome back to the Witch's Way podcast. I'm Kat.
And I'm Jayme. And tonight we are going to get into another very tender but very powerful topic because we already did healing the mother wound.
We did.
So tonight is healing the father wound, or just speaking about the father wound. Because, in all honesty, I'm not sure Kat and I will have healed it. It's a constant work for us.
Yeah.
And it's something that we don't talk about enough, probably. We've just accepted it. And, it's just like, it's the father wound. And there you go. We have it and we acknowledge it. And it's like, yeah, it's like a tattoo you got in Cancun when you were 18. You're like, I just don't talk about it now.
Or a scar. I noticed that I have this scar like right here from an incident with my ex.
Oh.
Like this huge scar. And I noticed it today. I was like, wow, that's a really big scar.
I don't ever notice it.
I saw it today. So anyway, the father wound is like that. My father's name was Jack. And that's what I still call him. Never dad.
Never dad.
I never call him dad.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't a dad. And he's gone now.
Both of our fathers are crossed over.
Yeah, they're on the other side.
Yeah, so they get to watch this while it's going on.
I was thinking about as we were talking about doing this, like I never have even, he's been gone for a couple of years. And I haven't ever felt the desire to like have a conversation with him on the other side to see if he's different than what he was here, which of course he would be, because here in this earth, he was an alcoholic.
Yeah.
And he was also a really fun-loving guy too, but he was also not a good girl dad. He was not a good girl dad. Yeah. My brother and him were really close. My two brothers, actually, Rick and Mike, were very close to him and had a great relationship with him. And my cousin, a cousin of mine, is like, Jack was the best. He taught us so much
Everybody
stuff.
talks him up.
Everybody talked him up and stuff like. But with me, it was a totally different story.
Yeah,
and I don't know why that was. If it had something to do with my mother and their relationship, or he just was not a good girl dad. But anyway,
I think and gosh, I'm probably going to say a lot of generalizing statements that I shouldn't, because I don't know. It's not like I know that many father-daughter relationships. I should just speak really about my own experience and maybe what I've seen with, if I know some actual people in their father-daughter relationships. But I have come across a few dads that find having girls is very difficult for them. They don't know how to connect with them. They don't know what they need. They're afraid to let them down. They're just like, I don't want to treat you like a princess because I want you to be strong. But also, I don't feel like I can actually instill strength in you, because I don't know how to do that with a boy. It's like you're tough on them, and then they think that instills strength. This is also going to be a lot about parenting. And I mean, think about the choices that people make.
My father was a pilot. He was also a carpenter. That was his life skill. He was a carpenter. He was in the Navy. So all these like super hyper masculine things.
Yeah.
And that's what he passed on to the boys and the boy cousins and stuff like that. But so maybe it was that there was nothing that he had. But I would have loved to fly. I would have swung a hammer, but that probably wouldn't have been feasible with a girl out on a construction site. Not in my, not in your, not in the day. 80s anyway. Yeah,
not in your day.
Not in his day. Not in his mind. It never, there were definitely clearly defined.
The gender roles
clearly defined gender roles, and women were.
It's something you have to fight against as well. Yeah,
exactly.
So there's with talking about a father wound. I mean, depending on what age you are right now, the different experiences that our fathers have had and the men in our lives have had, that makes them a certain way towards the women in their lives.
Absolutely,
and I do think that I've tried to meet the men that I've had in my lives, whether they're bosses or friends or coworkers or whatever. I really do try to meet them where they're at in their own experiences. I could try to expect more from them, but I don't need to teach them those lessons. But I think if you're able to have a relationship with your dad, where I know I failed, and we're already jumping ahead to stuff that we have written down, but I never told him my needs. Like, I expected him to kind of understand what I needed. Like, he should know, and I shouldn't have to tell him, which was a really weird thing when I was younger. And so I just kept a lot from him. I was like radio silence for a lot of it, and just let him talk and let him ask questions. And I never offered up information. I never said, Dad, I need you. Or, I wasn't honest about that. So that's my part in facilitating the father wound, and you either could have a part in it or no part in it. We just hope that during the discussion tonight about the father wound, that some of this might resonate with you. We're going to give you ideas to heal sort of the inner child, or, that never goes away no matter what age you are. Our inner child self, where we didn't get the things that we needed, and we don't feel secure in the world in masculine relationships.
And in my case, I know, the people that I picked to be in intimate relationships with were me trying to heal what I didn't get from.
You can see that now.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I was always trying to fix, somebody. And part of that was probably avoiding fixing myself. But the other part of it was like, let me see if I can fix this man, because maybe that will fix the relationship with, my dad.
The unwantedness. Yeah. So we are going to be unpacking what the father wound is and how it shows up in our lives is like as witches, right? Because when we need to own our power, we need to own all of our power. And that is healing the divine masculine as well as healing the divine feminine. Both of those wounds come from our parents and other people that we've had as guardianships over us. But as witches, as women, as mothers, just how do we even begin that sacred work of healing ourselves after bad relationships with parental or, what did I just say? Parental figures and what? Caretakers, caregivers.
Yeah.
The people that have been the people that have been in charge of you. I mean, it's not, it would be great if there was only one wound. I probably have 3. I have bio dad, stepdad, and, a counselor at school that was supposed to be a protector. And when these protectors let you down, when they're a masculine protector that lets you down, it leaves a lot there, whether it's a gaping hole or stuff filled with like bullshit emotions.
For me anyway, a lot of it is this hyper need to be independent and self taking care of myself and not needing somebody else.
Yeah.
And that's something that would crop up in relationships where I didn't want somebody to take care of me because, for one thing, then that opens up the door to them eventually not doing that. And then I'm left.
You're being let down.
Being left down.
Being abandoned again.
Because my issues started young with abandonment.
Yeah.
And
I was going to say, it's good that you can pinpoint those things because you know what to heal and you know what to look out for. But sometimes when we're going through this, we don't even know what the thing is that they left. We don't even know what. That's where the work comes in, right? That's where the shadow work and the reflection comes in of like, what did not having a dad leave me with? What did his absence create in me? Yeah. Because I have that same thing. And I used to think that I got it from you to be this super independent woman, never let anybody take care of me. I created relationships where I was always sort of had the upper hand and I kept score. That's terrible.
She learned that all from me.
But then when I look
by example and probably by, by conversations.
Actually telling me.
Yeah. Don't ever depend on them. Don't ever depend on anybody because you can't trust them. And I think that's ultimately
the mistrust in the world.
I think that's ultimately what it comes down to is like, when can you allow yourself to trust somebody in this position to
be your protector?
To be your protector because you've been hurt multiple times probably in your life from it. And that trust, to have that, to be able to trust somebody in that position, that's not a small thing.
It's not a small thing.
It's really, it's scary, and it's really easy to look for things to say, nope, I knew it. No, there it is. There's that behavior.
Self-fulfilling prophecies anyways.
And then there's that behavior that I knew was going to happen.
Yeah.
And, because people can be, good, and then they're not because they have a bad day, and then they say something and you're like a trigger. Oh man, that's something I remember.
There's the leak in the boat. I knew it was coming.
Exactly. So,
well, let's first talk about what the father wound is. And I know that for Kat and I, we're not going to be able to hit on every single point of this, but for you as the listeners, for you guys to get more out of this, if you want to look stuff up, there are so many good websites about this. I mean, I love psychology so much. It's diving into all of these facets of relationships and how they shape us. But the father wound is a deep emotional scar that's left by either absence, neglect, abuse, inconsistencies, or even emotional unavailability. So like you could have had a dad that was there your whole life and everybody's like, oh my God, you have the perfect family. Like your parents stayed married forever. And really the home was this chaotic fighting. They didn't like each other. He slept on the couch, like whatever happened. But in the outside world, it's like, nope, your family looked perfect. It's like, yeah, just because my dad was physically there, he was emotionally not there.
You see those a lot. You see a lot.
They make movies about him.
Yeah.
That was one thing I did not write this in my notes, but you know, when I was sort of researching more of how to relate the father wound, do you know that the Harry Potter movie, fucking Star Wars, these are about father issues. Luke, I am your father. I mean, like Harry not having his parents left him to be this very vulnerable kid, and he didn't have confidence. And they write characters specifically that have the father wound. So it's really interesting that you'll watch a movie and you don't even realize why you connect with a character so much. And it's because it's written about the father wound or possibly the mother wound, like we talked about a couple weeks ago. But yeah, when I started looking at, there's like a lot of famous movies made on that play of this is the father wound. And that's,
I'm sure there is thing. Because, you know, I mean, if you want your movies to connect with people, you got to connect a story emotionally. That they emotionally.
Yeah, for sure.
But you know, the father wound is not necessarily about a bad man. Sometimes just like we talked about with the mother, like I came to see my mother as the wounded child that she was, and I knew what happened to her. Yeah. And it's the same thing with men. They go through things too. They're just not, you know, society, at least in decades past, didn't allow men to express themselves, to have emotions, to be vulnerable,
to have any weaknesses whatsoever.
Weaknesses. They always had to be strong and tough. And so they had this exterior, and then, but you know, they could have been lost or broken or, you know, just unequipped to parent.
Yeah. Young parents.
In the way that we needed. My dad was the youngest of 9 kids. Wow. And he was born, so he was a oops baby. And because he was born like when my grandparents were like in their early 40s. And so all of his brothers and sisters were way older than him. They were all teenagers when he was born. And then when he was like 8, the next to the youngest kid, Bobby, died in Korea. And that sent my grandparents, from the stories I heard, it just sent them reeling. Yeah. And they really just kind of left Jack. They just couldn't deal with the loss of their son.
And they didn't know how to love the son that was left.
And they just didn't.
That's so tough.
So they kind of like let him, he was left to flounder, and he was young, and they kind of pushed him off on the oldest girl, my Aunt Dixie, and because she will claim, if she was alive, and she did with my brother Mike, I raised your dad, I wiped his butt, and all this stuff, you know. So they pushed him off.
The older sister,
the oldest daughter that they had living in the house at the time. And so, you know, I mean, how, you know, an 10-year-old kid, I mean, how are you not going to be fucked up from that? You know?
Yeah.
That's gonna.
He had the wounds.
Yeah, he had the wounds, and then the wounds get passed on. So this is like generational trauma.
Yep.
So anyway, so those are some of the things. That's my dad story. The stepdad who raised me, he was left in an orphanage when he was 3 by his parents. So he was raised in an orphanage.
I didn't know that.
George, yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yep. But he was really compassionate and kind. Of course, he was just a different person. Yeah. I mean,
there's temperament in kids as well, like in the psychology world. So there's temperament and how we handle our adversities. Yeah. You know? But I think that, you know, whether like they physically left or they were unemotionally there, when the father is gone, there is a sense of like a deep unworthiness that can be felt by the children left, you know?
Feeling worthiness. That's worthiness. It's worthiness.
And there's a longing to be seen or to be protected, to be wanted. And I think that's where that bleeds into relationships later in life, where you find people who need you so that you're filling that void of like you wanted to be needed by your parent. Yeah. No. So you find people who need to lean on you, and you're pissed about it. You're like, why can't you fucking grow up? Because you chose a man child because you know, there was this little circle. Yeah. It's so interesting.
And especially when you're young, depending on where you are in your life, you know, if you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, when you're younger, you're doing a lot of things. I know I was doing a lot of things personally that were almost self-sabotage, because I was trying to prove a point that I didn't even know that I was trying to prove a point about. But when I can now look back on it, I was like, oh yeah, I can see why I was doing those things. Because at the time it was just like rebellion. But I also can recognize now that where a lot of that was driven from, you know, that came from not having a dad, having a fucked up mom, just all the things. So
I can remember thinking that. So I ran away for a little bit, and my mom was like my only parent, really. You know, my dad was absent and my stepdad was fucked up, and we'd already left him years prior. But I remember when I did decide to run away, and I was just kind of like, I'll just do what I want then. Like I know so much. And
How
I was
old were
16.
you?
I was 16.
She waited a long time to start acting up.
I did. And it was only because of a boy. Duh. Like, oh, the shit we get ourselves into because we're defiantly going to love who we love. And that's just it. Nobody can tell us any different. And it was really like, I just walked away one day. I was just like, you know what? Fine. And then I stayed somewhere for a night and I was like, whatever, we're mad. But then the next day came and I sort of expected my mom to like send the fucking hounds. Like the whole world was going to come crashing down on me. I was like, no way she's going to let her daughter go. And when she didn't find me, I was like, did I outsmart her? And I thought that for maybe like 3 days. And then I didn't outsmart her because the people I was staying with found out. They were like, are you a runaway? Your mother just showed up at the house. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. Nope, we're just in an argument. Bye, I gotta go. And ran out the back door. So with that, it was like, if she didn't come looking for me, I think part of it is like, I needed her to prove to me that she wanted to really save me from this bad decision. And I can only see that now because I'm 44. I couldn't see it when I was 16. I thought I was just doing what I want and loving who I wanted. But I think that when you fuck up, you want your parent to kind of seek you out, protect you, tell you no, because that shows love and caring, you know? And
for sure.
I think that that's where it's like the longing to be seen and be protected. Sometimes we go on those rebellious adventures because we're waiting for somebody to be like, I love you. Come here. Let me get over here. Let me fucking squeeze the shit out of you so that you'll stop hurting yourself because you want to be seen. You want to be loved.
Well, you want to know it. You want to know someone cares.
You do. You're looking for that now because it wasn't at home. You didn't get it there. There's that lingering belief that love has to be earned, and whether it's earned through positive actions or negative actions, that is a real thing that kids can do. Negative attention from their parents, which is like bitching at them and grounding them and whatever, is still attention. Yeah. And that is, again, a psychology thing if you want to look it up. But
so for many daughters, especially which is an empath, the absence of a healthy masculine energy can leave us ungrounded and unmoored.
Yeah, unmoored, absolutely.
It's hard to build a strong root chakra when we never had that safe masculine presence holding a container. This wound can make the world feel unsafe and make ourselves feel like too much or never enough. Like we're too much or we're never enough.
Yeah. And the opposite ends of the spectrum that can fall on because of the inconsistency and a strong masculine figure being there to show you what a good man should look like, what a good, again, I'm using these terms loosely, but a good masculine figure, a good protector, whatever that means, is like when you don't have that example, you don't even know when you're getting a bad protector that's just lying to you straight to your face. You know, it's like, oh no, this seems right. And TV shows I think TV shows and movies really fucked me up because I'm like, that's not real life. That's so Disney, you know, like that's so Disney. Sorry. That's not what real world is all about. So
Disney.
That's so Disney. Yes. So even though we might not realize it's a wound until you start examining where your fears and patterns or shame even come from, like the little voice in your head that's constantly saying, prove it, or you're too much, or don't trust anyone.
Yeah, don't trust anyone.
Don't trust anyone.
Learn that lesson early.
That echoing voice is what could have been missing. So I know it sounds crazy, but like the person that should have been telling you these things when they're missing, we create that persona in our head that now we're that protector for ourselves, which we're going to get into. You know, it's like, how does it show up in our adult lives?
So the father wound doesn't stay stuck in the past. God knows it doesn't. It leaks into the present and into everything. Even if you built a strong life, you might still notice overachieving or people-pleasing. Behaviors.
Yeah, people-pleasing
hoping success will finally earn love or validation. Avoiding intimacy or fearing rejection because you learned love isn't stable or safe.
Yeah.
Attracting partners who feel familiar in the wrong ways, emotionally distant, critical, and unavailable.
That's something that we do when we've had bad relationships, they always say, like, a long time ago, you and Joe used to say your pickers are broken, right? But I never said the words, but I definitely thought, like, why do I keep choosing guys that don't live up to my expectations? Well, because I keep choosing guys that don't live up to my expectations because I did that. But I'm like, I didn't do this. What? They seemed fine. What's really interesting is that the patterns that repeat themselves, when we find that that's the pattern we knew in childhood, we can pick the pattern again in adulthood, but believe, like, we convince ourselves that's not really the case. We're like, no, but I chose this one, so they're not going to be like that. And they will do the things. And, like, I believe in them. And we get stuck trying to fix people, some of us, because we keep believing that they're going to be more, but they're just more of the familiar. They're not going to be more than who they are. Us trying to change people.
I think the other thing about familiar, even though it's wrong, it's like, you know what to expect.
You do, yeah.
And so there's not.
What's that saying? Your brain will always choose. This is with self-talk, but your brain will always choose a familiar hell than an
unknown. Yeah.
What was that?
What the saying
it's something
is.
like that. Because when you want to change your thoughts, like, it's really hard to think positively when you've always been, like, a negative self-talker. And because your brain feels more comfortable knowing what to expect and shutting all the things down and, like, being sad. When you're happy, you're like, whoa, this is new. I'm scared of this new. I'm scared of this new habit. I'm scared of this new thing.
What's going to happen?
Yeah.
It's unfamiliar feelings.
What I have found when women finally break the habit, and I'm including myself in this, when you find a guy that's, like, actually worthy, you start telling yourself you're not good enough for them because they seem too perfect, or they're not going to accept all your flaws, or you start pitting yourself against them as, like, no, they're not the real thing. Nope. It all must be lies. It's a facade. They can't be real. I've seen both of those examples. Yeah.
The other thing that might manifest as you in your life from, this father wound is hyper independence.
That's what we have.
And yeah, that's definitely
hyper independence.
It looks like strength, but it's actually rooted in a fear of needing someone.
Yeah.
And not wanting to need somebody because you don't want to be disappointed, let down, because that's your experience. So
yeah, it's like, as much as you want a partner, you also do not want a partner because the opportunity for them to let you down is...
Well, and then you just got to deal with the hurt all over again. So you become sort of like walled off and like, I can do it myself and I don't need anybody. And I'm better off that way because if I don't need anybody, then nobody can let me down and I'm not going to get hurt. And yes, it's hard, but what's the alternative? And then eventually you do find somebody, you let them in, and then they prove
you they're right or wrong. Can I tell you about this funny bet that me and two of my girlfriends had after I dated Cameron's dad? And I was just really like, well, now I have a kid. I don't really need a man because the stepfather thing, because of my bad experience, I was like, I'm never doing a stepdad thing. Like, that's never happening. I'm never letting anybody around my child.
Right.
So Cameron was like 2.5, 3. I got my job to Iraq, and two girlfriends that I had at the time, we all made this, like, really stupid, it's not even a bet, it was just like a contest, a pact, not even a pact, actually it was a competition, truly. One was an Aries, one was a Leo, I'm a Pisces, and I just fell in with it. Okay, so they were definitely like, we're pacting this shit out, 2 fire signs. And I'm like, it's a competition because it was like, who can fucking win it? And you want to know what it was?
What was it?
Who could go the longest without dating somebody? Like, and that included sex. You couldn't have casual sex with somebody. And I was like, I'm going to win hands down. You guys don't even know. Like, I'm going to a war zone. Like, I got all this other shit going on. I'm not even meeting people. When I got back from Iraq, I moved
just
to
a
Florida.
Bunch of guys there. Mostly guys.
Disgusting. Yeah, no, they're all just, they would fuck anything with a hole. So no, there's nothing there. Sorry, that was crude, but it's not wrong. I had to create terrible lies about myself to make myself unattractive there because it didn't matter. It's not about relationships when you're in a war zone. It's about feeling connection and knowing that you could die the next day, that some people went all out. But I started with the rumor that I had herpes, and that didn't work.
Are you serious?
Yes. And I told everybody they better, I had one close friend and I was like, and if anybody asks you, you better fucking tell them yes. Well, I got called.
They don't care.
No, they don't care about any STDs. They don't. Unless, well, you can't even go over there if you're HIV positive. So that would be the only one they would care about. But they didn't care about STDs. So then I started telling people that I used to be a man And then I had surgery in Thailand, and like everything was fake and all of that. And that proved to be very effective, but it had consequences that I did not expect, where people started talking about my big hands, but they could see my Adam's apple. They were looking for a bulge, because what I said was that I was there on contract duty so that I could get money for like the lower sex change. And I know this is wrong on many levels, you guys, but listen, I'm just a girl trying to survive in a war zone. I don't know. Whatever lies I had to tell, okay? And so when I would be at the gym, men would stare at my crotch. So it didn't make it better. I was actually more of a spectacle. I made it worse on myself. But I mostly stopped getting advances except for one or two. And then I was just like, dude, no, like, no, that's for Thailand. You're going to need to take it elsewhere. So that was how I won the bet. I won, by the way. Of course I did. Yeah.
Oh, well, it's funny that you had a bet to see how long you could
go without a relationship.
Because sure. I didn't have a bet. I just told myself, like, after my second marriage ended, I was like, I told myself, we were together 6.5 years, and then I was with my first husband for like almost 10 years. And after the second one ended, I was like, well, you know what? I just need to take a break, right? So yeah. I set a time limit of 5 years of no relationships, yeah. No dating, no nothing, no checking, none of that. I was just going to work and take care of my kids. And that's what I did. And it actually lasted a little longer. It lasted about 5.5, maybe 6 years before I met somebody. And then when I met someone, man, I went hog wild. Dude, I went like, phew,
the floodgates open.
I went so far off the deep end.
All of that resisting.
Yeah, all of that. That was all pent up from all of those years.
Oh my gosh, that's great.
And I just made like one bad choice after the other.
It all came flooding back. I took a 5-year break, but it all came back.
And it evidently didn't learn a jack shit, because the first guy I picked was a raging fucking alcoholic, but man, was he fun.
That was Rye?
No, that was Paul. He was a lot of fun at first, and then
he was the bald-headed one.
The bald-headed one.
Yeah, I think I remember him once.
Yeah, and then there was like a succession of guys after.
They were just fun. They were just fun times.
Good time.
There you go. They were a good time, man.
That was my second. I don't know what it was. My second something or another. You know what? I was like, almost didn't have all the kids were gone. Or grown. Jayme and John were out of the house.
Oh no.
Jayme and John were out of the house, and Jolene was like 16, and Jolene was like in her teenage years, and she was in her older teenage years, and she wasn't driving me crazy. We were finally like friends, so we were partying and stuff.
I know. I would be on my ship in the middle of the ocean. I remember calling one time for my mom's birthday. I think I was on the Essex. We were floating around outside of Thailand. And I just like, I'll call my mom. I worked in the Radio Shack, so I had like free calling to anywhere in the world I wanted. And I call, and it is this hootenanny of a party. And I'm just like, I don't even know who the fuck answered the phone. It wasn't anybody I knew. And it's so loud there. And I was like, yeah, I'm looking for Katrina, my mother. Like, what is going on in my home right now? And I'd only been gone maybe 3 years, 4 at the, three at the most. Because I went to the Essex year 2. So 3. So life had changed in little.
That was my 42nd. I think it was we had a big.
Wow.
I think it was my 42nd birthday, and the guy that I was seeing at the time, he was fun. I always pick the fun ones.
The fun ones, yeah.
And
they distract you the best.
Yeah, and we had a huge party at my house. It was a 70s party, so we're all dressed up in 70s, and the music was blaring, and
oh my God,
there was a trash can in the kitchen filled with
every liquor and juice you can imagine,
something or another.
Yeah. And here I am in the middle of the ocean, just doing circles, like. Just don't even know what to think, you know. But I was happy for you. I was like, wow, my mom is having a good time, because she struggled. I mean, raising kids and being a single mom and how much she worked, 3 jobs and all that. Honestly, when I called, I was like, good for you. Fucking get it, girl. Like, you go do you. You sacrificed enough. Go get it. And then when I came home, I was like, oh, we're partying a bit too much. My brother had taken over the house and painted all of the rooms like black and neon colors, and there were black lights everywhere. And I was like, what kind of trap house did I walk into?
Yeah, when I came out of that 5 or 6 year hiatus of not dating anybody, I probably shouldn't have done that. I probably should have like done something in between that time. Although I did have one like tryst for a while with a guy that never mind. I'm not going to talk about it because I don't know who I
secrets. Okay.
Anyway, so
yeah. Well, we're talking about all this fun stuff, but we're going to bring it back down to this very, the father wound it's very serious, even though we're being lighthearted about all of it.
Yeah, I mean, because at some point you just have to laugh about it. Hopefully you can laugh about it if you've gone through some hard shit in your life.
Reflection
and you can look
helps.
back and you can be like, damn, look at me.
Look at that. Look what I did.
Yeah. Maybe I should have thought that through a little more, or I learned something from it, or, at least I had fun. I mean, I was living life, right? I wasn't like sitting at home on the couch watching TV.
Being sad, eating bonbons.
Something like that. Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, to not forget like the spiritual effects that we all have when we avoid working with the divine masculine altogether. Because I will say that is something I've struggled with until I met.
I struggle with it. I don't want to say God.
Well, I don't really, because I don't use God and goddess.
I mean, there's such
just talk about the goddess.
There's really just, I struggle with, I don't care about.
I do like the label divine masculine more than I like the word God.
Yeah.
And maybe that's because of its religious connotations, but
absolutely, yeah.
I like saying the divine masculine because it allows me to create a picture in my head of what I think a divine masculine would be. And probably for me, like? Honestly, well, I was going to say, I don't think one exists here on Earth, sadly. That's what's fucked up. I'm still not all the way healed with it, but I will say that as a protector type, but somebody who also allows a woman to be a woman, and he's not mad about the differences that we have with feminine and masculinity, where our cycle is the 28 days and our levels are like hormones all over the place, right? Where he's more steady and he goes through these other levels. And to have the understanding of that we're not always matched and paired the same. And I think that people in relationships really expect that. Like when you're happy, I'm happy. When you're sad, I'm sad. One of the things I struggle with my husband now, who I love, and if I knew a divine masculine, he'd be the closest person to it at the moment, but he still has a lot of healing to do. He's not fucking perfect by any means. And he knows that. And I know that. We're not expected to be perfect for each other, but we are expected to stand by each other and say, I see you in what you're going through. How can I help? Or I'll just give you your space. That's fine. I had to teach him to give me space when I needed it. And he felt that as an affront to him, where it's like, he felt like I was mad at him. I'm like, I'm not mad at you. I just want to be alone, and that should be okay. So there was many things about that, but what it goes back to is allowing you to be who you are.
Well, one of the things I was going to point out is that one of the things I really admire, I guess, about your relationship with your husband is something that you said recently, which was he just needs to be heard. So I don't need to respond. If he's complaining about something, there's nothing I can do about it. It's something that happened that he's unhappy about, and he just really needs to be heard. And I think, that for me anyway, as my own experience in my relationships, like I don't know that I had a lot of healing to do. So none of them were really, they were pretty damaged. I was pretty damaged, and the people that I picked to be with were pretty damaged. Yeah. So consequently, the relationships were a lot of ups and downs, and a lot of it was driven by me. I mean, my first husband, I was like, I used to like to piss him off. If he pissed me off, oh man, I knew exactly what to do to set him off, and I would do it. And that's terrible. That's a terrible way to be with somebody. But anyway, I like that about you and Tony, because you're like, he just needs to be heard. So I don't respond to anything. And sometimes it's really good if you can keep your mouth shut and just not feel like you have to have an answer. So anyway, I'm kind of off track here, but I just wanted to say that.
I think what's good about it is that when masculine and feminine are accepting each other where they're at, each needs sensitivity and time, and they need to be treated like, I think what I understood from being around men in the military was what masculine looked like back then to me was somebody, you know, strong and powerful and this and that. And because the men that worked in my field, they were, you know, nerdier, softer, not muscular, not the quote, I'm doing air quotes, macho, manly, like they weren't raw. But those men, I'm not going to say disgusted me. That's a strong word, but those men irritated me. I was like, what else is there to you? Like, okay, you got muscles and you can like break down a brick wall. Great. Can you listen? Can you sit? Can you not be raging all the time? Like there had this balance. And I think that when divine masculine and divine feminine come together, we each allow each other to be soft and strong when we're ready. And it's not a forceful thing and it's not an expectation. It's like, I've seen men where they're like, look at her fucking go. That is her. Look at her go. She is on her shit right now. She is doing it. And whatever she needs, I'm handing her tools as she's working on whatever. And then as a woman, to respect the softer side of the masculine is to say, my husband is fucking sad and hurting and he's disappointed. And how can I be okay with his sadness and not think less of him or be like, that's not manly. Why are you crying? Shut up and get back out there. You know, rub dirt on it and get back out there or whatever. There's a perception through societies and cultures and stories and our own experiences of what we think a man or a woman should or shouldn't be, or what a masculine or a feminine should and shouldn't be. And truly, I think that we're a blend of both. That is where I found my peace with it. I know where my husband has his soft points and I know where I have my hard points and vice versa. And it's like, when I'm fucking ready to go, when I'm doing something, I am on that shit and I'm awake for 24 hours doing it. And that's the kind of stick through and grit that I have masculine wise, right? So I know that about myself. He sees that in me and he's like, yep, no, I'm gonna leave her alone. She's on a fucking project and she's going for it. And for him, it's like, if he's, you know, his daughter was murdered many years ago now, 7 years ago, Jesus, 6 years ago. And that is not an easy thing for somebody to witness when that person was the fun person, the light of the room, the personality that just lit up everybody. When Tony had to experience the death of his daughter, there had to be a lot of grace for whatever he was going to go through, the sadness, the tears, the heartbreak, the feeling towards her 5 children that were left, like everything that my husband went through to lose a child. That is, I don't think that you can add the word masculine into that. I don't think that you can add the word feminine into that. I think that there's just an experience. It's a soul experience. And that's when I think that we're combined, is when we're feeling both at the same time. Like the qualities that we try to assign to them, they overflow with each other. That's why I have a hard time saying, like, what is divine masculine? Well, it's got to be in balance, right? It's got to feel both. It's got to know both. It's got to have softness and hardness.
I haven't really given that a lot of thought, because
that's a great question for all of us. If you were to define it.
Yeah, if you were to think about it, like, what does that mean to you? What does that look like?
Is your divine masculine allowed to be sad, hurt, soft, crying, depressed, take medications for depression? Where does it go?
Some in society might term unmanly, which is very unfair.
Right.
But, it's a societal thing, right? Yeah. I mean, little boys don't cry. Boys don't cry. Sticks and stones and all that shit. So,
and what do they say about little girls?
I don't know.
I love that. I don't know either. Well, there used to be
why don't I know what they say?
It's like, I actually don't know.
I can't. If there is something they said about little girls.
I was thinking about the whole old culture, like the, See Jane Run type books where it's like little girls.
Which is how I learned to read.
Yeah,
See Jane Run.
I know.
Dick runs fast. Or Jane runs fast.
Exactly.
See Spot jump.
Oh, gosh. But, there was this idea of how women should act, how men should act, and how they shouldn't act.
Yeah.
And like what behaviors were acceptable. And I'm glad that we're sort of getting rid of all of that shit and we're blending it. That's where the word goes, blending. I don't know that it's just one or the other.
I actually think we're going through sort of the transition in our society where we're realizing that I think we've been realizing this for a while, that really tough guy, steely man who never breaks down, who's always just like this rock, and he's, he never has a sad moment, or he never is vulnerable or even empathetic.
Yeah,
I think
empathetic.
That we're as a society, we're realizing how much damage that's done to men and how it's
how unfair that is for them.
Yeah, and how unfair. They're human beings.
So
for fuck's
unfair.
sake, you know. They're going to have feelings too, but they haven't been allowed to express them. And I think as a society, we finally realized that that's not healthy. And, you know, as human beings,
it's abuse and damaging.
Yeah, it's damaging. And it causes men then to be a certain way that doesn't turn out to be all that great for anybody, for them, for their wives or their kids. Yeah. And so we're starting to change that. And we're seeing, I feel like we're seeing things go on in our society where, you know, women now are looking, you know, I read a lot of the dating threads because at some point I feel like I'm going to maybe try to date again, although I don't know.
I love that.
I don't know, but I read a lot of the dating threads and I'm like, and like women are looking for men now who can be vulnerable, who can be empathetic, who can be more who can be softer, because the ones that came before that were taught to just be tough, you know, they had, I mean, think of what they had to swallow to be tough. And this is how they ended up drug addicts, alcoholics, abusive, because they had to hold all of that shit in. Yeah. And not only that, but they weren't allowed to go to therapy because talking about your feelings was just as bad as having the feelings.
That's admitting them.
So the whole thing was just like holding all of this stuff in. And
so unfair for them.
And, you know, so there is a shift happening slowly. And so we have this like weird thing I feel like going on in society right now where it's like, you know, there's this fight against like, what are men going to look like 20 years from now? You know, I mean, I know my daughters raise boys. I only have grandsons, no granddaughters,
no girls.
So my 2 girls had 3 boys. Yeah. And so and they raised them alone.
And they were mostly raised around women, which is also interesting.
They were raised around women.
Yeah.
And so as I get to know them, you know, as they're older now, because when they're little, you don't see that much. You see some of their personality, but when they get older is when you really start learning who you're starting to see what they're going to be, you know, what their thoughts are or what their like outlook to the world is. And I see a softness, not in a negative way, but in a compassionate way. I see compassion in them. I see empathy in them. And that came from their mothers, I believe. So
Jolene and I have talked about this, and we said that we really believed that we got 3 boys because she wanted girls. I only wanted boys, but that we got the 3 boys because we became single mothers, which neither of us wanted. We were both trying to undo like what happened with our parents, and my mom being a single mom. Like the last thing we fucking wanted was to choose men that we needed to leave or that left us. But truly, we chose men that we left because they just didn't live up to our standards. But
because they had healing and you guys couldn't heal each other, and
I mean, we cared more about our kids than we did healing the father. So we were like, we're fucking out. Like, deal with your own shit. We got boys to worry about now that we care a lot about. With raising our sons, what we truly believe that we're doing is we're helping aid that shift of compassionate men that then will go forward and treat women with compassion. And the one thing that I remind my son of, it's not always valued for him to be a compassionate man, because his first love was a girl who was very manipulative and all over the place. She was very sweet and, you know, like she put on the front, like she everything was
the cutest.
Oh my God. They looked amazing together. Also, like
so adorable.
We were all like, oh my God, if they have kids one day. But they were young. They were only 16. So, but it was just this like doting on each other. All of the stuff that was out in front was really great. And Cameron was so sensitive to all of her needs and the abuse she had suffered in her own family. And she loved that about him, that he would listen and be there and tell her that wasn't right and that she deserved better. But she also, being an unhealed young woman at that time, treated him poorly, you know, abused, manipulated him, called him on so his first experience in love was not great. And I'm trying to not let him be hardened by that. What I'm telling him is people are going to be attracted to you because they do see an empathy in your eyes, because you do listen, because you do understand, because you were raised with a woman. So you can understand when a woman says how she feels, like you get that. And that's why Jolene and I believe that we're making a difference in this whole shift, is that we didn't get girls, we got boys. And
when I had kids, I wanted 3 boys. And I didn't get them. I didn't get them until I got my grandsons.
Yeah,
so that's when I got
boys,
the 3 boys. So let's get on. Continue on and start. Yeah. Let's talk about healing the father wound, and how do we go about doing that? What does that look like?
Well, because the father wound shows up in parenting, like we were just talking about, right? Like you might be overly cautious or overly compensating, unsure how to teach your kids like what you never received, which we know, which I left people for. I'm like, and that's why this healing is, healing the wound is more than self-care. It's like lineage work. And we talked about that. This is literally like through the lines. Yeah. This is not just, it's generational. Yeah. That all of these things are happening. So have grace with whatever situation that you run into while you're thinking about healing this. Healing the father wound it's sacred work, and it takes time, and don't rush it. And it's not in one day, and it's not in a couple hours of journaling. That's not it. It's slow and layered and deeply personal. Everybody's story is deeply personal.
And I think it's years. I think you can expect years.
Absolutely.
I think it's years of living and reflecting and
assessing and reflecting and talking about it
and having experiences, and then realizing on reflection when you have certain experiences, how you could have done things differently or why you behaved in a certain way.
Yeah. And each relationship shows you little clues.
Yeah.
I do think that each relationship.
Recently, not about 6 months ago, I was visiting my brother. So my brother, that we share the same dad, he's the only one that we have the same dad. I had 6 siblings.
6?
We were 6 kids, 5 siblings. And then I had a brother that I just found like a few years ago through 23andMe. That was my father's son. But I went to visit him. He lives about an hour from me. And he pulled out a picture of me with my dad when I was about 3 or 4 years old. And I saw this picture of myself, and it was like I was like folded into myself. That's what I perceived from this little girl, that's like 3 years old.
Your posture.
Yeah, my whole posturing was like folded into myself, and I just thought about what I had gone through up to that point in my life. My mother leaving me with my grandmother when I was 8 months old, and then my dad coming and getting me, and then how just all this like not normal stuff that little kids, toddlers go through. But I was really struck. That picture really, really struck me as like I could just see my future self in that little girl who was like trying to be smaller, in that particular.
Be less than. Yeah. We said that earlier. Yeah. But that's kind of one of the things. You're too much. Don't be too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So healing the father wound is sacred work. It's slow. Oh, you already said this. Slow, layered. Okay. So how do we begin?
Yeah. How do we begin?
Work. Oh, the inner child work.
It always, I think it's such a buzzword, the inner child work, but I think truly to reflect over the little person that we used to be. I think that's why I brought up
this picture of myself that I saw of this little, 3-year-old, 3.5-year-old kid that looked like she was trying to be smaller than she was.
Yeah.
I'm struck when I see pictures like that, and I was like, wow,
Well, this brings a feeling of tears to talk about how I've seen pictures of me, and I'm literally, we should get them side by side. I'm 9 or 10. I'm at the showers at Wyandotte County Lake, and I'm in literally the same position as you as a little girl, because I'm in the shower in my bathing suit, and whoever's taking a picture of me, it's not like it's inappropriate by any means, but it's like to be seen by a camera has always made me feel like, ooh, shrink yourself down.
To be smaller, yeah.
I struggle with that. And, starting all of this with you guys, like doing the New Witches Q&A and then pushing stuff onto YouTube and being out front in front of people and being seen is fucking terrifying to me. That is part of my father wound, because I didn't feel seen by him as a little girl, and I wasn't taught how to be secure and have confidence and protect myself. So now it's always like, hide, dim yourself, find the shadow places, don't talk.
I think the confidence, as a girl, I think as a female, especially, when the father wound is there, whatever it was for you, you lose confidence. You definitely lose confidence, because you're like, equate your worth to did your father love you? Was your father there?
Yeah.
And it's really hard not to, it's not until you get older that you can finally kind of start to separate, because he was this way is not a reflection on you. But certainly when you're growing up and when you're young and when you're in your 20s or even in your 30s, you're very much connected to that child who was abandoned or neglected or abused in some way, and blaming yourself. Like, what
Feeling
if I had been different, what did I do wrong?
If I had been good, if I had been
fill in the blank,
whatever the blank, all the things,
fill in the blanks. If I had been this, if I had been something other than I was, this could have been different. I could have had a connection with my father. I could have had a close relationship with my father.
I would have been wanted by my father.
I would have been, loved.
So I want to read this, but I swear I keep looking at it, and I just feel like it's going to make me cry when I read it. So I'm just going to read it.
Okay.
No.
Go ahead.
I'm going to breathe and I'm going to read it because it hits. Okay. So go back. This is the inner child work. This is one of the ways you can begin. Okay. Go back to the little girl who wanted to be held. See, because I had abandonment. Told she was brave, that she was beautiful, and that she was safe. And sit with her and ask her, what did you need? What did you deserve that you didn't get? And then give it to her. And I've done those visualizations before, and I don't ever see myself at the house. I see myself playing in the woods, running away from home all the time. Because when Jolene and I were young, that was our escape, was to run into the woods and be with nature and just to pretend, to have this whole pretend life. And I really want to tell that girl, because that's who I remember myself as being little, is the one who came home from school and it was immediately off to the woods, all of the trails and tracks and everything that we knew out there, and tell her it's okay. Your imaginary world is okay.
Yeah. If you ask yourself those questions or reflect on those, expect tears.
Oh God.
Lots of them.
Yeah. It's just, and I love my dad. I got a relationship with him for 1.5 years before he died, after his absence. So I felt like I did a lot of healing in that time, but I swear to you, sometimes it will never be enough. It still wasn't enough. I still felt gypped. I still felt like I needed more from him or wanted more from our relationship. And
I know it's funny, both of my girls, not so much with my son, I didn't see this, but I definitely experienced this with my daughters. They hit a certain point, I don't know, it was 12 or 14 or whatever it was, where they got pissed at their dad. Before then, they were like, I love my daddy,
Yeah.
And my husband their dad was incarcerated for a long time. So that's what his deal was.
His absence was jail.
His absence was that he was a drug addict, and it led him down certain paths and wound him up in prison. And so they spent a lot of time in prison visiting rooms, and so they get to see him once a month on a Saturday for 4 hours or whatever. But what happened, so when they were little, when they were 8 or whatever, 6, whatever, my daddy was the greatest thing in the world, right? He was like the rock star, he was the
fun guy.
And in fact, they would have preferred him over me and didn't have any problem, at least the younger one, telling me that they wish they had their dad and not their mom.
Yeah.
But both of them reached a point and they got pissed off. They woke up one day or came to a point in their life where they looked back and then fuck you.
Yeah,
man.
fuck you for not being here.
You made these fucking choices and left
you chose that over me.
Yeah, and they were mad. And they didn't want to talk to him.
I wouldn't talk to him, wouldn't take his phone calls.
Oh my God.
Wouldn't respond to his
letters.
Went
through some shit, both of them, for it took probably 2 years, for them to work through that.
Yeah, because I was basically you abandoned me, I can abandon you. Fuck you. You know?
They did the whole...
I did.
You remember that,
Of course I do. I remember being pissed at him, and I remember thinking, I hope it does fucking hurt you that you don't talk to me, because you know what? You're not there for me. And you chose that life over being with your kids. That's your fucking fault. Deal with it. I had to have those angry feelings, and I was glad during that time that I didn't turn to being really out there with boys, because that was what a lot of girls my age did, that when they figured out that their fathers were pieces of shit and they were like, fuck him. I'm gonna, and so their sense of confidence and security, there was this really warped thing where they were just like, fuck it, I'm overly confident. I'm going for the world. I'm going to own it. I'm going to be a man. I'm just going to go out there and sleep with as many people as I want to. Whereas, that interfered with their safety. That wasn't safe for them to do. If their father had been there, they would have been like, this is not good for you.
Let's be real.
Yeah, it's when you think about it,
to your psyche when you do that. I know there was a point in my time.
It feels like control.
There was a point when I was a teenager that I was very promiscuous, and it was damaging to me later on, because then I was like, didn't even know what the fuck, had a very difficult time in relationships.
It's that up and down of like, fuck it, I'm doing this. Okay, now I'm, so you go through all of these emotions with the anger, and then I don't even know if there's necessarily regret, but then there's like, what did I really learn? What did I do to myself? Why did I choose that? Because it gave you a level of control. And then now you feel like you're out of control because you're not actually controlling the situation. These boys are, and like just the whole thing with it. So
it can feel very warped and be very warped.
Yeah. It doesn't feel like love after a while.
That's the inner child work. You go back and talk to that little girl.
What did you need? Yeah. What did you deserve that you didn't get? And I think deserve is a big word there, because when we think of a child, we have expectations for what a child deserves. When we're adults, we're like, they deserve love and safety and care, food and shelter,
I don't think
clothing,
that's unreasonable.
education.
I think if you're going to bring children into the world, you have a responsibility.
You have a responsibility. I think that's where you get pissed off. Like, you fucked off your responsibility for this.
Yeah. And if you just leave them with their mother and go off and have your life, and they're like, what the fuck? What is wrong with you? Yeah, that's pretty, and I know a lot of guys, in my age group, and even guys a little bit younger than me, who, even my son's father, didn't see him after he was, 6 months old. He never saw him again after that. He went back to Virginia, where he was from. I stayed in California, and I didn't try to keep that relationship going, and he never saw him again. And he was okay with that. He never tried, he never put forth any effort either. Yeah. And I think that was a lot. I hope it's not as common today, but I think it is. I think men walk away easily a lot of times.
Crazy.
So
let's see. When you go through those questions and you think about, and you're able to answer them once you get through all the tears, imagine that little girl, and then give that to her, and then give that to her again and again and again. Make that part of your routine. What I did in my early workings of trying to heal my father wound is tell myself that, I think that if he had been a healed person, he could have given that to me. And so what I give it to myself now, which is part of the healing work. It's like I become my own protector. I become the thing. So you're not expecting it from other people, but you give it to yourself. You're looking out for yourself. You're healing yourself. You're growing yourself. You're learning things to keep yourself safe, loved, happy, whatever the thing is, But that's definitely like I didn't label it as a journaling prompt by any means, but something to think about, to do. Because the next one is more of a thing to do for healing, the father wound. And that's, of course, an energetic cord cutting, which Kat did. Well, was it cord cutting? What was it?
What?
That we did last year when we were making Witch School, that's on Witch School? The ritual that you did for your dad?
Oh, it was forgiveness,
Forgiveness, but it wasn't like cord cutting.
No, it wasn't.
Actually,
no, I burned something. I did.
Okay.
It
was a burning ritual?
Yeah, I wrote some stuff on.
Yeah.
Wrote some stuff down and then released it by burning it. And that's what I did. Yeah.
So when you do it like an energetic cord clearing, cutting, cleansing, whatever you want to call it, it really isn't about like erasing things, and truly breaking that bond, because your souls are connected. You chose your parents, as we believe. You chose your parents. You're supposed to have a connection with them. But what you're actually taking about, it's releasing what no longer serves you. It's more about cutting the cord of the negative emotions that you associate with that bond, and saying like, I can own all of me without needing you there. So you use a ritual or a visualization to cut the cords of the guilt, because we have our own guilt around not being worthy enough, about not, or being too much, being difficult child, or, God, when ADHD first came out, I remember, they started diagnosing kids with ADHD early and putting them on like Ritalin in the 90s, right? Like that became a new thing for boys, which I thought was really fucked up. It was like, oh, now they all have these disorders because they're hyperactive. What? They're boys and they need to be outside doing shit. But so you have guilt of like not being enough or being too much for parents to handle. And then like the longing or the obligation of it, you can still hold on to love and let go of the pain at the same time.
Yeah, I think the release is really a release for you. It's not.
It is,
It's for you to let go
It's personal for you.
Yeah, it is. It doesn't, it's all of the fucked up feelings that
it could be
carried around,
anger,
that you've carried around like your whole life from shit that happened to you in your childhood and in your older years.
That you might hold your absent parent responsible for, the father wound responsible for.
And it's letting go of that. So that's what that would be about. So we do have some ritual suggestions. One is to write a letter to your father. You know, what you wish he'd said or what you wish he'd done, you know, and then burn it with intention burn it with intention or bury it to give it back to the earth. And burning is what I did in the when we did the spells for the witch school.
The rituals.
That's what I did. I did a burning spell. So that's something that you can do.
I like to burn stuff.
And then so the next one is candle rituals. So you can do a candle ritual to honor your inner protector. And dress the candles with things like herbs like cedar, frankincense, and rosemary. Now, tell me, because I'd have to pull out one of my books to know the meaning of each of cedar, frankincense, and rosemary. But why are they good for this particular candle ritual when you're wanting to honor your inner protector?
So I'm going to start with rosemary because it's one of my favorite herbs.
Rosemary is such a great herb.
So rosemary has to do with the memories of stuff, you know. So it's also called water by the sea. So it's about, with water you have emotions, you know, the ocean is there, like it's this mistful plant. It's originally from the Mediterranean, so it grows in that environment of sort of heat and warmth and ocean salt and wetness. That's how I think of it when I think of rosemary. But having to do with the memories, that is to remember who we truly are. Remember, we're not just this life. I'm not just Jayme. I am hundreds of lives before this. My soul is much older than my one life where I'm 44 right now. This is a blip in my soul's life. And for Kat, it's the same way. And for all of you, it's the same way. We're not just this one lifetime. We're many lifetimes. So your inner protector goes back thousands of lives maybe. So that rosemary can really bring forward the old memories of your old lives and show you the protector that you've been and you know, sort of why you're here. I think that the tunnel of forgetfulness, when we come and we're born, we can still tap into the old lives. I mean, there's past life regressions and all the things. And I think that rosemary helps drum up that I've been other people before. I've been strong before. I've been the protector before. So bringing in rosemary for that. Frankincense helps connect you with the divine essence in my mind. Like that's what I wrote it as. So when you are burning frankincense, whether you know what I have as frankincense, it's just incense things. The incense sticks. Yeah, that's it. Like that's what I use as my frankincense. And that connects you to the old ways. It connects you to, I don't want to say
we're
memories.
Kind of tapping into with these, and I'm guessing cedar is probably in the same. We have kind of some of the same properties,
healing with the breath. Yeah, definitely.
So I mean, you're tapping into this, you know, something that is beyond where you are right now. Beyond this deeper and
bigger and just
your spiritual, the spiritual side.
Yeah, those are all very spiritual herbs. Yes, definitely.
So another thing we can do is call in divine masculine archetypes that feel safe and sacred. I don't know how to say that. I know Odin, but
Kronos.
What is this?
Yeah, it's Kronos. It's not spelled like it sounds. I know. Don't look at it.
It's Cernunnos. That's Kronos. I thought it was with a K.
It is, but that's Greek versus Roman. Okay. Don't worry.
So,
and then Odin.
So divine masculine archetypes. I'm sure there are many out there. Different.
The Green Man is actually who I should have said, because that is probably who I relate with more.
I could get down with the Green Man just because
he's the Green Man.
You know, he's the Green Man, and you know the whole nature thing. Like he's covered in leaves and stuff, and I'm like, I could just fall into that. I feel like I could fall into that. So that would be that is something when I think of it that I could automatically. I feel like I could trust immediately.
Yeah,
you know, just because
I like the depictions of his forest face and like I like the mask
it's nature. He's wrapped in Mother Nature, for fuck's sake.
Yeah,
you know, how could you not trust
that? For fuck's sake.
Or let's see, so Odin, or even the energy of the sacred father in nature, which is the Green Man.
I mean, that's who I would list, but I do like Odin. I will just say Odin was, if you guys know the story, he sacrificed himself to bring knowledge to the world. So I think that there's just an element of him that is like women in some regards, where it wasn't
self-sacrificing.
We just do that. But he, he hung on the tree for whatever days and got the wisdom and brought forth the runes and gave up his eye. And also, I've never ever announced my witch name before anywhere, and I'm not going to necessarily say it now, but there is a god. So Odin was really, he's not perfect by any means. And I think that's why I like him. He's sort of like a dick and then also really good sometimes. And I can connect with that. I'm like, you're on your path, you're doing your things. Like, he's very, in my mind, he's very human. But he wanted the knowledge to always be with him. And so he killed this god named Miramar, and he carried around the head. And, because it's fucking Norse mythology, the head still talked and gave him all the knowledge that he wanted. And Miramar is a name that I connect with because I'm heavily mental, airy, very much that Virgo, know everything, analyze all of that. And Miramar connects with that. So Odin is always this funny character where I imagine him needing me by his side to give him all the information, because he's just like kind of this brute that's trying to get through the world, but needs somebody who is wise. Yeah, I don't know. I guess that's why I
thought you were going to say Miramar because there's a naval base. There's a base in San Diego, Miramar.
I do know that. Yeah, yeah.
Remember that?
I do.
That's where we're from.
Miramar. So it connects. It just connects. Yeah. I don't know. The Odin, the Norse mythology. I love it. It's brutal and yet kind of funny. It has funniness to it. Yeah.
So healing doesn't mean forgetting.
Doesn't mean forgetting.
Choosing to live unburdened.
Yeah.
Every spell, journal entry, and moment of self-compassion is a thread in the tapestry of your healing.
That's what we mean when we say it doesn't take a day. It's not one journal entry. It's not a month. No, it is so over time. And you pick it up, you put it down, you pick it up, you put it down, like every good thing in witchcraft practices. You get on it, you're stuck on it for like a month, and then you don't see it again for 2 years.
That's okay.
That can be the father wound, the masculine, divine masculine.
You don't always need to be dwelling in it because it's heavy. It's too much.
You need to have fun still too. Yeah.
You need to live.
You need to live. You need to get out there and live. And I think that's where the last part that we wrote is something that was really important for me to decide on, but becoming the protector that we need for ourselves. Yeah.
When you've done the work to feel, face, and begin to heal your father wound, something sacred happens. You become the protector that you never had. And that doesn't just change your life, it changes your legacy. Yep. To begin with, say the words your father never could. I'm proud of you. I've got your back. You're safe.
And say this in the mirror if you can. 100 years ago on this channel, I told everybody how I would stand in the mirror naked and tell myself I loved myself while looking at every single flaw I thought I had, because I'm compared to Victoria's Secret models. So what the fuck am I supposed to think of myself? But it was like, I have to love myself. I have to love every part of myself. And that was really hard to do. It felt stupid, embarrassing. I wanted to laugh. I was like, if I ever told anybody this, horrible. But when you are ready to say those words to yourself that I'm proud of you. Look at the you that you are now. Like, I'm Jayme in this life. So Jayme, I'm fucking proud of you. Like, look at how far you've come. Was everything perfect? No, it doesn't have to be perfect. That's not what life is about. But I'm proud of you. I'm proud of how far you've come. I'm proud of everything that you've done. And I've got your back, meaning that we don't ever want to fail ourselves. We don't want to let ourselves down. Live your dreams, speak your truth, do the things that are good for you, and that you're safe, that you'll learn to keep yourself safe.
The other thing you can do is set boundaries, like a fierce guardian of your peace, because you finally realize your worth.
Protecting. You're worth protecting. You're worth protecting.
Soften your own masculine energy, your inner provider, leader, and container without fear. You don't have to hustle for your worth anymore.
I was just talking to somebody today about how sometimes we equate our worth with how many dollar bills we bring into the household. That is not always worth. Worth can be defined as something else. So figure out where you gather your worth from. That is really fucking hard. That's a whole podcast in itself. My God. Because we're so connected to, like, if we make money, our jobs, our education, like, who are we? We are those things. And that's what our worth is. How many friends we have, whatever.
I'm close. I'm probably 3 or 4 years from retirement. And my whole everything is my work,
right? Your identity.
My identity is my work. And I get, even though I would love to not work, I'm not independently wealthy, so I'm going to continue to do that. But then once I don't work, when I get to that point and I don't have this job anymore, like,
what happens?
What happens? Then
who
at
are
that
you?
Point, like, who
do you say you are?
Yeah.
When somebody's like, oh, tell me about yourself. Well,
I'm just going to do a lot. I'm going to do a lot of gardening, and plants are going to become my whole.
I love that.
Plants are going to become my whole thing.
That's your whole personality now.
Everything. Yeah, it's going to be my everything. I'll probably be like
I sell plants on Facebook Marketplace.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. I'm going to do cuttings and have like a whole backyard full of pots.
I'm going to teach people about plants and pollinators.
That's what I'd like to spend more time with. So I'm like, I'll just gravitate to that and join a garden club or something. And
we'll start the garden club, Mom. That's what we can do.
Okay.
I lost my spot now.
You're right under.
All right.
Did you find your spot?
Yep. So the next thing to say about becoming the protector that we need for ourselves, we become the protector we need. We're in charge of guarding our boundaries. For mothers, this becomes generational alchemy. And like I said about my son and my 2 nephews, like my sister and I really believe that this is what's happening. The generational alchemy, you learn to show your children what stable love feels like. Not conditional love where it's like, do good or I fucking won't like you. Be quiet and pay attention and do everything I say or I won't like you. No, love is unconditional. That's what stable love is. Even if you've never had it. And I learned to do stable love by reading a lot of books, a lot of self-reflection, a lot of going over shit, and realizing what unstable love looked like. Sometimes the best way to know what you want is to know what you don't want. To know what the opposite of that thing looks like, then go with the other thing. It's also to be emotionally available and safe, even while still figuring it out. I admit to my son that I don't have all the answers. I think that that's a really important thing to do as a leader, as a person who loves somebody, is to say, I don't have all the answers, but I'm still here for you. I'll do what I can. I'll try with you. We can explore this together. Teach your kids, and especially your daughters, but also your sons. Sorry, we need this. We need all this.
Yeah.
They don't need to shrink to be loved. They don't need to perform to be accepted. I don't need somebody going through the motions to please me so that they feel loved. I think that that's a really important thing. Yes, Mr.
Is that my dog?
That okay. Mr. Tinkers is whining. He says it's time for his walk.
He might have to go to the potty.
Yeah.
Okay, this work rewires your nervous system. It rewrites the family spell book.
Yeah.
You're no longer wounded. You're no longer the wounded one waiting for someone to show up. You are the one who shows up. Yes. For yourself, for your inner child, for your lineage, and for your future.
Absolutely. And when you become that protector for yourself, the world starts to feel less threatening because you believe in yourself. The divine masculine becomes a teacher, not a trigger. And life begins to feel safe to be fully lived, like living out loud, being the person that you want to be.
You don't have to carry your wound alone.
You don't have to be unprotected forever.
Whether your father was a ghost, a storm, or just didn't know how to love you, you get to choose how the story continues.
We love you guys so much. And until next time, witches, stay wild, stay witchy, and stay rooted in your power. All right. Love you guys.
Bye, witches.
Bye.